Engineer Gold Mines is focused on the exploration and development of the historic high-grade Engineer Gold Mine situated 32 kilometers southwest of Atlan, British Columbia. Engineer Gold Mines is fully permitted for surface and underground exploration with the drill program now underway. Engineer Gold Mines Limited trades on the TSX Venture Exchange, symbol EAU. For more information, please visit us at engineergoldmines.com.
Welcome to the Goddard Report. Comments made on the Goddard Report and TalkDigitalNetwork.com are an expression of opinion only. Here is Jim Goddard.
My guest is Kris Sims, BC Director of the Canadian Taxpayers Federation. Her website, taxpayer.com. Welcome back to the show, Kris.
Thanks for having us.
Kris, gasoline taxes in Vancouver must be driving people nuts. $1.74 a liter, the highest prices in North America, all because of taxes. And are all the taxes collected, are they going to good purposes?
No, unfortunately. A lot of the taxes just go straight into general revenue. And you're right, that's the highest gas price in North America, and we have the highest gas taxes in North America. So on average, because the second carbon tax moves up and down, so we have to say on average, 68 cents per liter of the cost of gasoline in Metro Vancouver, so from Langley to North Van, is taxes. 68 cents. So you add that up and times it by how many liters you have in your tank, and quite frequently it's more than $50 in taxes that you're putting into your tank every single time you fill up. And this is unaffordable. People are trapped often commuting because they're trying desperately to afford the cost of housing. So they're living in places, down either way of the Fraser Valley on either side of the river, and they're driving into the city, and they're stuck paying the highest ever gas taxes and the highest ever gas prices because they can't even cross over to Washington State right now to save money on their fill-up. So I know a lot of working people are really getting burned right now.
There doesn't seem to be a national strategy on reopening the border either. I don't see why, if people are fully vaccinated, Canadian or American, they can't just scoot across.
And it doesn't seem like they're working too hard on it. Every time reporters remember to ask them about it, it's simply treated as an afterthought. I've yet to see any politician, either in Victoria or in Ottawa, say, you know what, this is a priority, and we're getting on that. Because maybe they're not affected by the huge price differences. Lots of folks do cross-border shopping in order to meet their monthly budgets, whether it's on gasoline or milk or meat or whatever it is they need to go across the border to shop for. A lot of families depend on that, and lots of folks have family on the other side of the border. So this should be a priority for people to get it done as quickly and as safely as possible, and we just don't really seem to be getting much accountability out of the politicians on this.
And outside of the Vancouver area, people may not know about Point Roberts, a little piece of Washington state that is stuck out of the south end of the greater Vancouver area. They're cut off. I think their grocery store is in danger of closing or has closed. And again, they're saying, we're fully vaccinated. Why not even have vaccination clinics here and allow people to go over there if they can't get vaccinated in the Vancouver area?
It's a perfect example of a lack of coordination. And again, once we actually get through this mess, and hopefully, knock wood, we're towards getting through it now, they need to have serious investigations into this. Committees on both Parliament Hill and at the legislature in Victoria need to do a full accounting and find out what did they screw up, what did they do right, in fairness, because I'm sure they did lots of things right, but they need to figure out what they screwed up on, and dragging your feet on a border opening could be one of them because it affects people.
Also here, now that we're getting even more hints of a federal election, federal government announces 5-year plan for $10 a day childcare in BC. That's a promise I've heard for the last 25, 30 years.
Yep, me too. I was working on Parliament Hill as a journalist when they were talking about that, and that was 20 years ago when I first landed out there. So yeah, they've been working on that for a long time. Our answer on that is along these lines. It's usually better for the caregivers themselves to have as much money kept in their pockets so they can be as flexible as they need to be for their own family. Everybody, as a person, is very complex. We're such complex creatures. Our families are complex, lots of moving parts. It is impossible for big government to know how to best care for your kids. That might be that you drop them off at a physical daycare institution with trained professionals, similar to kindergarten teachers. It could be that it's in conjunction with your local public school. It could be that your mom or your dad takes care of them, or auntie takes care of them, or you do shift work with your spouse, or you figure it out yourself. The point here is flexibility, and blowing millions and millions of dollars on it on a big government solution to a very complicated personal issue is not the way to go, and it's just going to wind up wasting money.
Well, I know it's not the same thing, but I think the residential schools show you what happens when the government thinks it knows best what's good for kids.
Yeah, and it's often, I think it was Ronald Reagan who said one of the scariest phrases in the world is, "I'm from the government and I'm here to help." Most people can want to manage their own affairs as best they can, and to do that, they need the freedom, meaning more money in their pockets because they're not getting overtaxed, and the better able to control their own destiny through democracy. So that means being able to hold politicians to account through things like recall legislation and through auditing. So basically, we want smaller, more responsible government and allow people to make their own decisions, especially for their own kids, because you can't get more personal than that. So turning around from Ottawa and trying to say to how many thousands of little communities and how many thousands of families within those communities, from Moncton to Victoria, that won't work.
Also, we're having all kinds of federal money being thrown around. Another rail corridor suggested or promised between Montreal and Toronto, like they needed another one. And it's not even a rapid train. They just will have more frequent service, but it won't be faster.
Yes, exactly. And again, this is just another one of those make-work projects that is bound to get just choked in corporate welfare. You watch how much money is going to be flowing into that project. And again, that area compared to other parts of Canada is already well serviced. It reminds us of this absurd idea of getting a rapid train between Vancouver and Seattle. If a private company wanted to do that with its own money, obviously with the proper land and environmental permissions, fill your boots. Who cares? Charge your tickets, get your passengers. But taxpayers paying for something like that? These folks need to watch the Simpsons episode with the monorail, because these things just become gigantic white elephants. They waste a lot of money, and they don't actually help folks. I've heard lots of people say, hey, why don't we actually put our time and effort into planning a commuter rail that goes further down the Fraser Valley, or, all the way out to Tsawwassen, or, down past Mission. All sorts of different suggestions to actually help people get to and from work here in British Columbia in an economical manner that doesn't ruin taxpayers. But going with these fancy trains that go from city to city that either already have transportation between them, such as Toronto and Montreal, or don't have commuters bouncing back and forth like Seattle and Vancouver, it just doesn't make sense.
What about Hyperloop? They're talking about building one between Edmonton and Calgary. Why can't we have a super rapid service like that out to the valley or between Toronto and Montreal, places where it could be economically viable? Exactly.
And again, government stinks at doing stuff. Get a private company to do it. If a private company can do it and they can make money at it and it works for folks, then that makes more sense. Have people sign on to it if they want to get housing along the area, the same way we've suggested before for rapid transit, meaning if they're buying condos or housing corridors along it, have that part of their strata fee if you want to. Adding more taxpayer money to it and getting the government to handle everything is not the solution all the time.
We'll have more with Kris Sims right after this.
Media recognition from Bloomberg, Reuters, recycling trade publications, patented process for 100% recovery of critical metals, including cobalt, lithium, nickel, manganese, aluminum. American Manganese is focused on recycling lithium-ion batteries for electric vehicles. American Manganese trades on the TSX Venture, AMY, the US, AMYZF, and Frankfurt 2AM. For more information, visit AmericanManganeseInc.com or phone me, Larry Ray, at 778-574-4444.
Don't miss out. Stay informed. Receive the Housetreet.com weekly recap with thought-provoking podcasts, radio, and articles delivered to your inbox. Sign up for the Housetreet.com weekly recap on our homepage at Housetreet.com.
Welcome back. We're speaking with Kris Sims. Kris, is Bill C-10, the bill to censor the Internet, still on the table?
It is, and right now it's on the Senate's table of all places. And, we're very quick to criticize the Senate here at the Canadian Taxpayers Federation because their pensions are pretty rosy and quite often they don't need to get a lot of stuff done. But in this case, It really does look like they are acting like the House of Sober Second Thought. They've slowed this down to the point where hopefully it won't be passed before the writ drops and we're in the middle of a federal election. And they're slowing it down for good reason. We've got former chairs of the CRTC. We've got civil liberty lawyers, specialists. We've got folks from all sides of the political spectrum, right and left and middle, say this is a threat to democracy. And it's not overstating it. C-10 would allow for bureaucrats within the CRTC, who are, of course, guided by politicians who are in power in Ottawa. They're the ones that set the tone. It would eventually allow them to decide what is and is not good content, especially in the audiovisual sphere. So that could mean that podcasts like this, if they decide that it is harmful or hurtful or, if it's subversive in some way, who knows what terms they're going to be using in the future. They can just cancel it. They can make it not show up. They can make it so that you are not allowed to post it, basically in the same way that you wouldn't be able to post something that the CRTC or the Broadcast Standards Council decides is objectionable on, say, CTV or Global. They would apply that to personal expression on Facebook, on Twitter, podcasts, you name it. So how long do you want to sit there and hold your breath and wait before a politician decides that a mocking video of them based on what they're saying is deemed hurtful, and they want that taken down? It's a very, very troubling thing, and everybody should be worried about it, and we're very happy that the Senate is slowing it down. It's one of the main reasons why we're fighting against this is accountability. So, for example, here at the Canadian Taxpayers Federation, we've been around for 30 years. We do the really straight up and down stuff, like reports, for example, like Gas Tax Honesty Day report. Lots of data, lots of number crunching, all very calculated, all very clear. Those are reports. But we also have fun. We blow up balloons on Parliament Hill. We will hand out golden pig statues. We will have Fibber chase around a politician who's lied. We have fun. But will they decide that that mockery is hurtful and not allow it to be broadcast? Same thing goes for some of the activists on the left. If they want to have fun and put puppets up on Parliament Hill and oppose, say, a war or, forestry or whatever, fill in the blank. If a governing power decides that that's hurtful, are they going to block that from being spread around online? That's very dangerous for freedom of expression, and it's why we're really pushing hard on it.
Well, in the U.S., their Supreme Court's been very clear about free speech rights and the ability to make fun of politicians and generate satire and parodies and so on. In Holland, apparently, comics can say anything they want about anybody because they have a sense of humor. Yeah. Here in Canada, it's very scary about what's politically correct one day and politically incorrect the next, and what the government plans to do about it. And right now, are they handing out a pamphlet telling journalists what a good journalist is?
Yes. And scary is the right word. I'm glad you used it. I was a reporter for years. I graduated from BCIT in 1999. I've worked for most major broadcasts and newspapers and radio. I've covered everything from, local, municipal sewage replacement to, federal murder trials. Being a good reporter matters because you need to have all your W-5s. But there's one thing that doesn't happen. The government sure as heck isn't in the newsroom. They're not supposed to be telling us how to cover news, the who, where, what, when, and why. They're not supposed to be admonishing us for our tone or our intent. That's crazy. Having a free press is fundamental, and it's tied to this C-10 thing too, because freedom of expression, as you want to express yourself, if it's through mockery or videos or what have you, and a free press are fundamental, because how else are we going to hold the government to account? I was just explaining to some young people in university why it is that we do stunts at the CTF, and we do use mockery, and other organizations do it too. But this is why it's important, because we can. Because we have the freedom to do so, and we must exercise that freedom. And I put it this way, nobody is pranking Putin, especially not in Moscow. And there's a reason for that, and we don't want to go there. And so right now, the Minister of Heritage is handing out a guide to journalists, what is and is not acceptable to be broadcast. And the government is the last group we should be asking. Now, we need to be clear. There are federal laws against hate crimes. Like, you can't say something. There's libel, there's slander. You can't invoke hatred on an identifiable group. Like, obviously. Those are federal crimes. They're already law. We're not talking about that. They're talking about layering on a whole bunch of extra laws on top of that, and that's where we're objecting.
And of course, that would mean more layers of bureaucracy. That means higher taxes, doesn't it?
Exactly, to pay for it. Because how are they going to hire all of these hall monitors to be monitoring us then? And how much are they going to be paid? And how much are their pensions going to be? And are they going to have jobs for life? And where are their bureaucratic hives going to be located? Are they just going to build more in Gatineau? Are they going to spread the pork around across Canada? This goes nowhere good very, very fast. And again, all publications and broadcasters should be very concerned about this. If you are on the hard left and you think rabble.ca is the best place you want to go to for news, like, fill your boots. That's awesome. The government shouldn't be able to tell you what you're allowed to say and what you're allowed to share online. Same thing goes for more right-of-center groups as well. So folks on both sides of this really need to sit up and pay attention. It's already gone through the House, unfortunately. I don't know why the NDP largely supported it. That was very concerning because this could stifle their speech as well. But now it's in the Senate. And some of the senators who were apparently appointed by Prime Minister Justin Trudeau are also the ones who are speaking up against it. And that's encouraging.
Jody WilsonRaybould, the first Aboriginal to be named Justice Minister and Attorney General, later kicked out of the Liberal caucus for saying she was under political pressure to drop charges against SNC Lavalin, a company that later was convicted of bribing officials in connection with Libya, and I think one of their executives was sentenced to 9 years in jail for it. She says she's not going to run as an independent again in the next election, whenever it's called. Are we losing an important voice?
Yeah, we are. Again, like we try to point out, this isn't about ideology. She could be left or right. We might vote differently when the day comes to a close, but what she sounds like she very much stood up about was accountability. And she saw herself as a whistleblower. I think most Canadians saw her that way. Very strong, very determined. And to have that strong of an MP and that strong of a voice now gone from Parliament Hill, that's a big deal. And so we'll have to wait and see where she lands. And again, if she's collecting a great big pension or lots of money, we'll always go after people like that. If they have an expense scandal, we don't care who they are. We'll go after them. But as a person to person, that took a lot of courage and confidence to stand up and say, hey, this is wrong. Keep in mind that she had all those accolades like you just described her and her titles, and she still stood up and said so. And Prime Minister Justin Trudeau was her leader of her party too, and she still stood up about it. That's really being accountable, and that's a big deal. And if you lose voices like that really shake the trees and bang the pots and make life uncomfortable on Parliament Hill for those in power, then that is always a loss. So we'll have to see what happens with her, but it's too bad.
Chris, what can people do if they have concerns like the ones we've talked about, or they have other issues that they'd like to raise?
We just have to encourage this so much. So we've got a situation going on right now. It's really, unfortunately, the perfect storm. We've got, in my own experience, we've got newsrooms that are almost empty. Okay, so reporters are dwindling, unfortunately, in mainstream news. And those were the folks who were covering local city hall. They were the ones keeping an eye on spending and things like that. So those are fewer and fewer. So there are fewer bodies around to hold politicians to account. So it's up to us. It's up to groups like the Canadian Taxpayers Federation. It's up to podcasts like this. It's up to independent journalists. And it's up to citizens. So if you see something, you have to say something. I encourage you to follow your local city hall, keep an eye on the news provincially, and if you see something you don't like, say so. Write that letter, CC it to the media in hopes that they can pick it up. Do a Facebook video on it. Don't swear, be firm, be passionate, and be direct. Share it with people. Tell your friends and family about it, because if we don't, democracy is like a garden. If we don't maintain it and do the work now, it will get overrun with weeds and tangles, and we'll never be able to sort it out. And that is how things like C10 get drafted. And there's a new one coming up just behind it as well. We've got some people looking at it right now who are good legal minds, and they're saying in some cases it's even worse than C10. And it still affects this expression online and what you can and can't say. So all of this combined with a lack of journalism that's seriously troubling. So it's up to us and the folks listening. If you see something, hold the politician accountable yourself. Make sure you send an email, post that video, share it with your friends, and speak up.
Kris, thank you so much for chatting with us.
Thank you for caring.
My guest has been Kris Sims, BC Director of the Canadian Taxpayers Federation. Her website, taxpayer.com. Is there an email people can send you messages
Yes,
on?
I would be happy to hear from them. If it's wasteful spending you're blowing the whistle on, or if you just want some help contacting the right minister to write that letter, email me. It's the letter K Sims, KSIMS, at taxpayer.com.
Or you can also send questions for Kris to us at info@Housetreecom. Our YouTube channel is Talk Digital Network. Find us on Twitter at Talk Digital Net. We're also on Facebook. I'm Jim Goddard. Thank you for listening.
Comments made on the Goddard Report and TalkDigitalNetwork.com are an expression of opinion only. The Goddard Report is available online and mobile at TalkDigitalNetwork.com. The Goddard Report is a production of House Street Media Incorporated.